Did you have, when you worked at Oberlin College, Jab, did you have a sleep spot?
Dude.
The Imperial Schools of Honor podcast. I am Josh Folan.
And I am Jeff Burns.
And we are going to be bullshitting about the formative years of home computer gaming as we revisit the feelies that accompany it. And not again, this will be our first time because we are dipping our toes into uncharted waters for this podcast feed with what I have cleverly, by my own measure, deemed an edit CONFIG.SYS quest, where we will be incrementally fiddling with an old school PC computer game, start to finish, with the assistance of vintage game literature. And that is so hard to say because I am so patterned with the with the other fucking thing. That was
it's
really
been the same thing forever. Yeah,
that was really fucking hard to say. Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this inaugural quest of ours here will be a ride along with Roger Wilco and Sierra Online's 1990 release of the VGA remaster of Space Quest 1, intended for PC compatibles. The accompanying literatures of antiquity for us on this undertaking will be the 16-page pack-in instruction manual, the 43-page official Sierra Space Quest 1 VGA hint book, and a wee bit of the 276-page official guide to Roger Wilco Space Adventures. The link to a PDF of all three of those will be in the show notes for the duration of the quest. What rig did you first play this game on way back when, Jab? And then give us your emulation disclosure for the current one.
What rig did I play it on? I don't.
Was it mine, or did you play it somewhere else?
No, it had to be yours. And
right, yeah, I would have guessed. Yeah,
that's all I was gonna say is like yours, because I don't know. It was just it was just a computer then.
Word. Okay. Well,
I think you got that from Ted.
I did get that from Ted, and I'll explain the specs to the best of my ability of that here momentarily. But I guess just tell us what you're playing on now.
Yeah, I'm playing on my my previously mentioned computer that I've been fucking around with since we've been doing these podcasts, or for a long while since I've been. Why am I talking about this? I have a laptop that I'm playing it on, and that laptop it's an Acer laptop. It has an AMD Ryzen 7 4700U processor, and that has a Radeon graphics card in it, of an RX Vega 7. GPU, and the computer itself has 8 gigabytes of RAM. So it's actually not a bad computer. Gaming computer, no. Bad computer, also no.
That's a nice middle ground. I love listening. I don't know. That's I don't know. That's so funny to me. How people sound when they're talking about computer specs is such a funny thing to me, for some reason or another.
Well, it's because it's such a weird thing. I'm kind of going to school for shit like this, and I don't know what it is. Yeah,
I don't know. I was so into it at one time, and and now I still have a vague. It's still the same. It's still the same terminology, but the spectrum that the numbers fall into now, I have no grasp of what's common. So to me, they're just wildly exorbitant numbers based on the formative numbering system that I learned this stuff in. Like the processor speeds and the RAM amounts are hysterical numbers compared to what I'm about to explain. This PC that I first played, or we both first played this game on, which was, first of all, the game was a big box copy that I picked up from Best Buy, I believe, a standalone version of this remaster, VGA remaster. And yes, the PC we played on it was a hand-me-down computer from Uncle Ted, and I'm pretty sure it was either a 20 or a 30 megahertz processor. It could have been 20, man, which is really bad. 30 is really bad too, but obviously...
It's all relative.
Yeah, on that spectrum, that's a massive difference at the time. So yeah, somewhere around there, megahertz wise, and it was a 386SX was the processor, which it was such a big thing too. The 386, and then you had a 386DX, or actually no, I think maybe the DXs didn't happen until 486s, and this is all pre-Pentium Intel. These are like these are completely meaningless aspects now that are no longer even a factor in processor stuff. Like 386 versus 486 was a huge deal in, I don't know, 1992. It was such a big thing.
Well, that's what's so confusing about trying to keep this shit straight, is because so my computer has 8 gigabytes of RAM. a computer, back in 1994, I guess probably could have had 8 gigabytes of RAM, but these things are not created equal.
It could not have. No.
I mean, okay, well, fine. I mean, then you can say a computer made back in 2007 could have had 8 gigabytes of RAM, but those gigabytes of RAM are not at all created equal. So, like,
no,
although the numbers like the gigabytes and the megabytes and stuff, although those metrics, those descriptors, are still in use, it's like there's a lot of other factors that go into the quality of these things.
Sure, yeah, to some degree that has, to my understanding, leveled out. Like RAM, for instance, like you might be able to do more than 32 gigabytes, but I think it's kind of like it's useless. Like there's no way to employ it in a beneficial way in the processes of the computer.
Yeah, and it's something to do with the way that like bytes travel along. Like as
speed of light or something. Speed of light.
No, I took it was in a class I took. It's like something to do with like the binary way that it's the information is sent along through these transistors and whatnot. Like there is an upper limit to this, and I think it's like 32 or some shit like that for peons like us. Like U.S. government supercomputers are probably made by aliens. So
right, that's different. Yeah. That's probably in a completely different way. Hopefully we'll find more about that out soon. Or find more out about that soon. So anyways, back to the old school PC. So yeah, it was the 386SX IBM PS2. It had 2 megabytes of RAM. And yeah, I mean, back then I remember it was because, those motherboards had most of them maxed out at I think 4 slots, and that was the whole thing. The chips used to be, and they were in those units 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and you could only you had to pair, like you couldn't, like of the 4 slots, the sets of 2 had to be the same. You couldn't pair a 2 megabyte with a 16 megabyte chip. It was like there was a whole bunch of dumbass limitations, I remember, on the way that you could even upgrade RAM on those old motherboards. And the computer we're talking about specifically was a locked motherboard. It did not have, I was unable in any way, shape, or form to upgrade the RAM on it, which was why I never got any more than 2 the whole time I had it. Because I definitely would have either got Ted or personally with some form or another selling weed or something, upgraded the RAM on that desktop if I could have.
If we don't mention it here, where would we ever mention it? What was that software that allegedly would like double your RAM?
Oh, dude, there's an awesome YouTube documentary about that.
I know, and I want to watch it. It's
on the radar. Soft RAM, I believe it was called. Soft RAM. And yes, it was in.
I know we looked into this like as much as we could.
We definitely tried to use that shit. And yes, if you watch this, there's probably a few of them, but the one I watched, it was amazing. It hindered it hindered the system. It did not help at all. And running the program, of course, consumes system resources.
RAM, right.
RAM and processor bandwidth. So yes, it actually hurt the performance of your PC.
I just pulled up the wiki, and literally the first thing that my eye went to, for whatever reason, quote, the product was rated the 3rd worst tech product of all time by PC World in 2006.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's from that guy, the person who, or the company / person who, it was like a guy with a very small company that developed a bunch of shit like that. And I'm pretty sure that's the dude that, it might even have been the guy that eventually did McAfee. There's some sort of, like a really prominent shitty software developer that is like he's just got an incredible resume of shitty products in that era. Because there was no policing. It was fucking complete Wild West. And getting shelf space in those, big box office space, or Office Max and fucking Circuit City and Best Buy was so easy because those stores were huge, new, and they were just, PCs were, no one understood anything. So they would just fill shelves with bullshit there with no effort to, ensure that it had any stamp of quality or market quality.
Literally zero effort, right?
Yeah, right. Which is also how a lot of shitty games like this were available to us, and you could just stumble upon them and find them like I did this very one. So that was the PC that we played on. My current situation, I'm using DOSBox as the emulator on my PC, keyboard and mouse controls like the OG computing gods intended it, and the rig specs themselves are godlike. It can do literally anything. It is an Intel i7 2.6 gigahertz processor with 16 gigabytes of RAM. I guess I could upgrade to 32, but I don't really find it to be an issue with video editing or gaming, particularly considering I'm playing Space Quest 1, so it's not really a big suck on system resources.
Yeah, and like I told you before we started this, people can probably run this on their toilets.
yeah, it's not a cumbersome program. The graphics situation specifically is an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060, which I believe came flush with 6 gigabytes of its own dedicated RAM. As far as where we got on this game in our original playthroughs, do you have any recall at all of how far you might have gotten trying to play it did we play this together?
See, that's the thing. I started playing this, and there's a couple of things going on here. Hey, bud, I know. There's a couple of things going on. I don't know that we played Space Quest 1. We could have played. There's 7 of them, right?
Yeah, there's a number for sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely played this one. This is the one I had. It might have been the only Space Quest I had, actually. No, check that. I eventually got 4.
4 sounds familiar.
The remaster of 4, which had a blue, like a turquoise box color to it.
Yeah, so here's the thing, I don't remember either of them, and I'm assuming that this should go well. I don't think it'll take long, because I don't think these games are terribly long.
No, they are not.
We should get to maybe all of, the spoiler alert, we should get to all of Space Quest, King's Quest, and maybe even Police Quest.
I love the aspiration there. I would love to.
Yeah, I would love to play Police Quest in the in this modern world and just see, pick that apart. That's going to be fun.
And that was 3 that I had of the. We've talked about that on the pod before with on the side quest. But yeah, I had 3, and yes, those games are insane.
Yeah,
they're going to be the early ones too. 3 was late. That was probably like mid 90s. Like those first ones, Police Quest 1 and Police Quest 2 are probably unbelievably weird.
Don't take this the wrong way. I'm sure there's a mission in there where you beat a black guy to death.
For sure. There's going to be all sorts of terrible
It's going to be completely shameless because of the aforementioned, we're not controlling for the quality of these products, the material, it's the Wild West, and it's you want to know what it's like to be a police officer? Here it is.
And Sierra, too, the way they did that, I mean, that's one of the really interesting things about Sierra is it was just Ken and Roberta. They had staff, but as far as the game designs, they didn't have to answer to anyone. There was no corporate overseer, and they could do whatever the fuck they wanted, basically. Yeah. They were gods in this realm, and in addition to not having to answer to anyone, that godlike status, I'm sure, empowered them with the belief that they could do anything they wanted and didn't have to really think much about it. In fact, I even kind of see that. I could go off on a real tangent about a VR reiteration they just did of Colossal Cave or whatever the hell it's called, one of their really early precursors to King's Quest. And they charged $40 for it, which is insanely expensive for what they were offering in the VR space. That's about as expensive as any VR game is costing on the Quest. And they did a terrible job with it. And it was really the criticisms of it. A lot of it was that they didn't embrace the technology. They tried to retain this retro, difficult, clunky feel to it and thinking that was a creative choice. And really all it did is just completely wall off your ability to enjoy it because of all the expectations of VR quality of life things, and they just ignored all that because this is how we do it. We want it to be this way. We're Ken and Roberta. You know what I mean?
That's crazy because that the clunkiness is easily the biggest drawback issue with these kinds of games. Easily.
Oh, for sure.
Without a doubt at all. I'm actually kind of we'll get into it when we start talking about the game, but I was kind of surprised at its intuition is the wrong word, Jeff. Responsiveness as far as the text commands go. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought it might have been. So there's a story in here, and I got things to say about the story too, as so far as we've made it, and just navigating the game world even like with having to like interact with the world wasn't quite as bad as I thought. But like if you can improve it, then yeah, why wouldn't you?
Right. And in VR too, there's like simple things, even like UI things, not even necessarily interacting with the world, but interacting with the world too. Yeah, there's a bunch of problems. I was literally less than a week ago, probably inspired by this, reading a bunch of reviews of the game. And yeah, they just got roasted. Fucking VR Upload, which is probably the most prominent VR review site. The guy just, oh my God, he roasted it. Yeah, okay, well, so, yeah, I mean, I also am semi-unclear on... I certainly know I played it, I owned it. There's much that I remember, particularly in this opening sequence of the game that we're going to talk about for this episode. But even in there are things that were semi-unfamiliar to me, and I certainly don't remember the way the whole narrative plays out. And I know, like... there was no internet back then, and these games were opaque as fuck. So I think the odds that I beat it, especially considering I don't remember that, and like that's the kind of thing. Like, yes, you might remember or not remember some of the bullshit in the middle of the game, but if you beat a game, there should be some residual something there.
Yeah, it should stick a little bit.
You'd think, anyways. I mean, not necessarily when I'm old now, and it's a long time ago, but I don't recall anything about latter stages of the game. And that has me leaning towards the idea that I got stuck somewhere as Sierra intended it and just never was able to get past that.
Yeah, I didn't remember any of this, actually. So yeah. I don't know if maybe I played 4 or maybe I played this one, but I was like 6. Yeah, my friends have kids now that are 6. I'm like, you're not going to remember any of this shit.
Right. So. Oh, okay. So that's what we got previously. Please rate and review the pod wherever you listen. If you enjoy our shit, it really helps. First up for Literature of Antiquity review is the instruction manual, and it's a lean 16 pages with covers, which honestly really surprised me.
Me too.
I was expecting far more pack-in direction than that on a 1990 big box adventure game. Yeah, that was pretty lean. The cover is a monochrome blue and white, Space Quest 1 real big and reverse Star Wars perspective font, and a Roger Wilco and the Sarien Encounter in white below. Some stock photo deep space stars and galaxy photography is the backdrop. And the first page is a masthead listing off the 8 key creative figureheads involved with creating the game. The 2 of which I think are probably most notable are the designers. Actually, that's something, I said Ken and Roberta. In this case, this is a different team. But their names are Scott Murphy and Mark Crow. And yes, these are the 2 dudes that would shepherd this entire series. They would coin themselves as the 2 guys from Andromeda and burrow those characters into the game lore itself, which is a pretty fun choice, I think. Creative choice. I'll drop their story from the Space Quest Omnipedia into the show notes if you want the full deal, but in line with the tone of these games, they are very self-deprecating and cynical in their portrayal of themselves, and it's fun. After a title page, that's a redundant relic of traditional book formatting, they start us off with a 4-page story setup, and it's well written in a very business tone with backhanded jokes peppered into it, and probably my favorite chuckle from it would be the Xenon scientists predict that only certain insect species and most lawyers will survive the resulting ice age, and that is very much in line with how all of this tonality goes. There are a lot of criticisms of government incompetency and such that prove, given this is from 30 plus years ago, that public consensus is never happy with the job government is doing, and democracy doesn't actually work.
You won't like the other options. I noticed there's also a Brave New World reference in there too.
Is there? What exactly? I don't know what that is exactly.
Brave New World, the book, Aldous Huxley, the actual better of the dystopian books between that and 1984. Brave New World is very good.
Yeah, I've read 1984. I don't think I've read Brave New World.
1984 is very good too. Brave New World's, I think it's better because it's a more plausible outcome of dystopia happening. Brave New World's very like boot on your face dystopia. Brave New World's just like do drugs and have sex and don't worry about what's going on behind the scenes, and that sounds appealing. But the sentence is lunatics and sub-delta morons have taken control of the TV networks. Actually, this happened centuries ago, but nobody noticed until recently.
Yeah, that's good.
There's genetic designators in Brave New World, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. Alpha's being the top and epsilon's being the lower, and you can be like positive or sub each of those designations. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Sub-delta moron would be a very stupid person in a Brave New World.
Okay. The plebes, basically, is how they would equate to 1984, if I recall correctly. I need a new book anyways. Maybe I'll drop that into the Goodreads quay. So yeah, that little jolly is referencing the dire situation facing the inhabitants of planet Xenon in the Urnon galaxy the story takes place in. Their sun is dying, and most everything on it is facing the possibility of extinction. And their solution for this little kerfuffle was the invention of a gadget called the Star Generator that was prescribed as being capable of turning a lifeless planet into a raging ball of fire. And the space lab where the development team was stationed, the Arcada, I kept thinking it was the Arcadia, but actually looking at the word instead of just guessing what it is from my memory, is the Arcada. And that is where the protagonist of the story, Roger Wilco, calls his place of employment. He is the janitor there. And you're not really part of it, but as the story starts, the development team has what they believe to be a fully operational device and is headed home to Xenon. Roger is sleeping in his janitorial closet, a professional activity we are told is one of the few aspects of the job he excels at, when a race of space hooligans called the Sariens, who see the device's potential for turning a life-filled planet into a raging ball of fire, and that has motivation for doing just that to planet Xenon, and they choose to attack and commandeer the Arcada as a method of obtaining it. Eventually, after the laser fire and cries for mercy from the crewmates subside, Roger gathers up the stones to emerge from the closet, and we assume control of him. Did you have, when you worked at Oberlin College, Jab, did you have a sleep spot?
Dude. So many, so much of this story, I'm reading through it. When I was reading through it, I was like, this is hitting way too close to home. And as to the question, did I have a sleep spot? So... yes, I did, but it's better than that. When I finally became a custodian at Oberlin College and got out of the kitchens, I eventually got a custodial gig that was second shift, and it was a floater position. So, like, if somebody called off, like, I went and took care of their area. But I didn't take care of it to the degree that they did. I took the trash out, I wiped the toilets down, I refilled the soap and paper towels, and I got the hell out of there. But my main base of operation that I was responsible for, Bosworth Hall, there was a custodial closet in the basement, and oh man, did I kick it down there.
I remember I came in and visited you one time.
Yeah, and we went in those tunnels. That was Bosworth.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't regularly get into those tunnels, but I mean, I had, again, when you were like, did you have a sleep spot? Like, I had floater keys. I had keys to every door on campus. I could sleep in the president's office if I wanted to. So, I mean, we got into those tunnels underneath the thing. Like, nobody goes into those. Maintenance doesn't even go. Like, there's no reason for anybody. We were probably the last people in there.
Right. I mean, what was the fucking, like, security,
I can't believe I didn't take pictures down there.
Surveillance situation there? Like, how much could you get away with without someone fucking talking shit to you, like, about why were you there, what were you doing, kind of thing?
I don't. You'd have to really. I almost went on the. So, like, I mean, to answer your question briefly, not much. Like, they had cameras outside of doors, but, like, that's just a camera outside a door. Like, there's not cameras inside the buildings. If there are, they're not really, like, monitoring, like, general hallways and shit. Like, if it's monitoring, like, a science lab or, you know. I bet the conservatory has, like, a lot of expensive music equipment. You know, they're probably keeping an eye on those to a degree, but, like, general shit that I was doing, like, absolutely not. One time I almost went onto the observatory deck at the observatory there in town, and I I wasn't sure if I would, because that's like out on like a roof, like outside, and I checked, and there was this like little gadget at the top of the door. I had like opened the door, and I was about to push it. I'd turned the thing, and I was about to push it open. I saw that gadget, and I was like, I'm not going to do it, because that might have set an alarm off. But generally,
yeah, that's definitely
nothing.
What that was for sure.
Yeah.
It was an electronic catch. Yeah.
Yeah, so I passed the perception check there, but pretty much nothing that I'm aware of. Especially like us down in those tunnels, like, dude, they don't even know that place exists. I'm sure. Like we came out the other side in a different building, and like that door not opened in a million years. I'm sure.
All right. I don't remember the tunnels actually. That's
really?
Funny.
They were.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I got to get in there again somehow.
I remember going in the door. You were taking the trash out. We went in. I remember going through a couple hallways. And I remember going into like a stairwell or something to go down. But yeah, I don't remember any.
Yeah, so we would have walked in like essentially it was in between the first floor and the second floor, and then we walked further down. Now we're in the basement floor. That's where my closet was. And then we walked past that, which would be west, and then you go like through this. Remember we went through that like little cage.
That kind of maybe rings a bell.
And then we opened a door, and then you're down in like a tunnel with like a bunch of generators, and it was like really hot.
Yeah,
it looked like some Fallout shit, honestly.
That's I can picture the environment. I just can't recall it.
We got to figure out when that was, because I got to dig the phone out and see if I took some pictures around then.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude! That would have been. I mean, it was right.
It'd have been like 2000. I'll tell you when it was. It was like 2000. Oh fuck, I can't tell you.
Well, yeah, it's definitely in the 2000s, Jeb. That's super
yeah. I was gonna say 17, but my mom was dead then, and it definitely wasn't then. It was before that, so it'd been like 14, 15.
Yeah, I don't remember. Well, it was. Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna try to put a, but the whole. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
No point in even guessing. Yeah. In any event, the next two pages are piracy prevention measures by Sierra, but at least they took the time to build these into the narrative in a way that goes beyond the message popping up that reads something like, turn to page 27 of the manual and find some shit to type in here. Like Master of Orion, for example, is a great example of this, where they just put the ships in the corners by the page numbers, or the ship names, I should say, with a picture of them. And the first of these two pages, these piracy pages, is titled Arcada Planetary Reference Arcada. How do you say that? Arcada. Arcada. Right?
So the pronunciation is actually AR-KAW-DA. So I think they want you to say
Arcada.
Arcada.
No shit.
Arcada.
Let's see if I can remember that.
I'm trying to keep myself in character here. Arcada.
So anyway, the Arcada Planetary Reference Library Catalog is the title up top. And the blurb here reads, please note, data cards are filed and retrieved automatically by code sequence, not by alpha order. To request a data card, please enter the code sequence corresponding to the topic of your choice. There is a $1 per day charge of overdue data cards. And then there is a list of various astral phenomena, asteroids, gravity, moons, quasars, etc., and a corresponding series of symbols that are probably best described as hieroglyphic-esque, maybe I would say.
There's a better word for it, but yeah.
Okay, well, I'd listen to what it is, Jeff. By all means, enlighten us.
I don't know what it is, actually.
Oh, okay.
I wish I did.
Yeah. So the Buckazoid 2, if you've never played this game, Buckazoids are the form of currency in this universe. So yes, they're making a late videotape joke there, which is pretty good and timely. Or of the time, I should say. The second of these pages is a list titled Navigational Grid Codes, and the blurb for this reads, per the recent contract provision enacted by the United Federation of Jargon Writers, the following code system is now mandatory in order to facilitate droid assist navigational system standardization. In other words, please use the following obscure codes when telling your droid where to steer your ship. And the list here is a bunch of two-letter codes, two-letter codes.
Yeah, that's it.
Doesn't need further adjectives. Paired with the same kind of hieroglyphics. So these are basically just ways to, I guess if you're too lazy to also photocopy the manual when passing out pirated versions of these on discs, or taking one from a buddy or making one from a buddy, however it might be, then you would have to call them and bug them on the phone whenever you needed these codes.
And then how would they describe those, as we say, hieroglyphics to you? Like,
right, yeah. They'd have to pull the game
here,
up.
Like,
you'd have to make them pull the game up and like literally point to places on the screen, the number pad on the screen, like second from the left.
Oh God.
Which, you know, I picture that definitely happened at some point. Some kid was bugging some kid that he pirated the game from at some point or another with that very reason. And I love that thought.
Yes.
Like all laws and rules, these didn't actually stop criminal activity. They just made the lives harder of people too poor to have easy access to photocopiers, is really what that amounts to.
Pretty much.
Yeah. There are then 2 pages of walkthrough text to give you the slightest bit of traction in the game if you're a total adventure game neophyte, but fuck that shit. I am not. A couple pages of selling shit, Space Quest 2, 3, and 4, which were already out at the time of this VGA re-release, and that official guide to Roger Wilco's Space Adventures book I mentioned we'll dip into a little bit on this quest. And you get a copy of that book free if you buy one of the games from them direct, and the price tags on these are $49.95 for Space Quest 2, and then $59.95 for Space Quest 3 and 4.
Holy
and 60,
fuck.
You're right, yeah. $60 in 1990 is $140 in 2023 money.
Woo!
Eek, yeah. Yes, that's a lot of money. But that makes like, and we do this all the time, these math conversions to modern day dollars and stuff. And a lot of times they feel abstract to me and I can't, I don't know, it doesn't mean enough to me to matter that much, but that convert, because like $60 for, like, that's about what the game, I mean, even Nintendo games, like I've speculated they were $60 in my memory too, for those, but even if you say, the MSRPs on most of these and those magazines we're going through now are $43.95, $44.95, the fucking Genesis games are more like $50 to $60. So like, that's what games cost then, and seeing it convert to $140 in this specific context to me and with inflation makes me completely disbelieve the theory of inflation.
Yeah, well, money's not real. Money is
right,
entirely
exactly.
made. It's completely, it's completely fake.
I agree with that as well. But yeah, that isn't that. It's not. No, like I just no.
Yeah, so
no.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the thing about like comparing these things. It's just like an interesting. It's as close of a comparison as a mathematical comparison as we can get, but it's not really a 1-to-1 thing.
Right.
And also, it's like it's very relative to other things. Like, yeah, it's not a 1-to-1. It doesn't work quite that way. It's just like the closest approximation that we can get.
Right. Yeah. Like the analogy I'm thinking in my head is those when they're showing like voting shit. Do they even show that on TV anymore? I'm sure that's
you have to use a more descriptive word than shit.
The percentages that like as voting is going down on the day on voting day, they will show those percentages, and they always mention there's like a degree of what's the terminology they use, like a variance to some degree.
No, goddamn, it's
margin of error. Margin of error.
That's the one.
Yeah, right.
Which is a statistical term. It's a mathematical concept, so it is a very real thing.
For sure. And, that's how I think of what that is. But even if you factor some sort of at least reasonable margin of error in, that is a massive, massive difference, Like $140, like think about it like, okay, even if you like, because the thing is you have to think about it in a less scarce form. You can't just do, and this is a perfect example of what you just described, you can't just say, oh, video games don't cost $140 in 2023. Of course they don't. It's a more developed and streamlined industry. Things don't cost as much. The R&D doesn't cost as much. Yep. The materials don't cost as much.
The training of the workers to create them doesn't cost as much.
The fucking the general scarcity of the product in general is not the same. There's a million economic factors.
Also, but here I'll counterpoint that. So like, yeah, the Space Quest right now, today dollars costs $140, and whatever game we just bought costs $50, right? But here's the thing: we sent more people to school on federal grants and loans to do that shit. You subsidize all that with your tax dollars, so like you're paying for video games right there. You can add on 1 penny to the cost,
right? Yeah,
there. And then there's a million other things that you do, like externalities from pollution from creating semiconductor devices to create computers in the first place. It's an incredibly incredibly dirty
Convoluted.
process.
System,
It's not only is it convoluted, but it's incredibly dirty process, and like the environment will have to be cleaned up one day, and like you can add that on. So now you've added another penny to your game cost, and you're going to do that until, guess what? You probably arrive at somewhere around $140.
Right, yeah, perhaps. We'll never know.
140 fake dollars. Also,
yeah, we'll never know. We'll just have to keep playing these old games on emulators and not think about it until we die. A page of anti-piracy and legalese bullshit at the very end, then the full credit list of people who worked on the game, and that is all she wrote. Now into the hint book, and the cover is a 1-to-1 facsimile of the game box art, an illustration of spacesuit adorned Roger with a drink in his hand, surrounded by a few aliens at a bar, probably anyways. And one of his right, or the one to his right, looks to be a pretty thirsty female. I would summate the two to his left to be a couple of wasted bros feeling very, I love you, man.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the vibe there. Moving inside, they start with a disclaimer page explaining that this hint book is written for the point-and-click VGA version specifically, and if you're playing the parser-driven version, you will, in quotations here, have to type your answers to execute all the actions described in this book. And Jab, you made a fucking remark in the opening segment. Did you play the parser one, or did you play the fucking point-and-click one?
No, I had to play the parser for this one because I couldn't get that file that you sent me to install. It just, as soon as I click the installer, it just hates me and refuses to do it.
The installer of what?
Yeah, I'll pull the download thing up. So, Space Quest 1, the Sarien Encounter, VGA 1991 zip. That's what I downloaded from you. I open up that first file, and then basically I have the install application that one would click, yeah?
No, you don't have to install it. I told you have to run just that SidHub exe.
SidHub exe. That's in here?
I mean, you have to do it within DOSBox. You have to read the instructions.
SidHub, I see.
You have to do all this through DOSBox. Through DOSBox.
Yeah, okay. See, I never got around to that. I will. I mean, it can't possibly be that complicated. I have DOSBox on this, so.
Yeah, you have to mount the folder as a drive in DOSBox, and
just this SidHub or
the folder that you have all those files in. Basically.
Okay, so the entire thing.
Yeah, you mount it as a drive, and then you run SidHub.
Okay. Yeah.
exe.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
So then, how did you fucking play?
I just typed a lot.
No, but yes, obviously.
Oh, I went to DOSBox Play Classic Games.
The website you mean?
Yep. Well, sorry. Yes, playclassicgames essentially.com, and then.
How does the saving work?
It just has a little save system within it. Like I just hit escape, and then I'll
and you
do
can
it right
come
now.
back to it.
Yeah, save. I mean, I didn't close this window, but maybe.
Yeah.
You just F5 save, and you can save like 7 or 8 states. It looks like so. Yeah.
And then come back to a later time. I'd be scared whether that would.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it doesn't. I mean, it took me like a couple seconds. I like restarted a couple times. We'll talk about that, but yeah. Actually, I'll close it right now, and then I'll try it again.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to work, but it doesn't matter. It took me 2 seconds to get back.
Yeah, we definitely didn't get far in the gameplay. Okay, well, after the table of contents and the first of a great deal of awesome pencil art, I'd have to assume is pulled from the concept stage of the game design, we get a couple of pages of setup for both the game on your PC monitor and this book in your hands. And first of this is an abridged version of the game story setup, then a short blurb titled About This Hint Book. And Jab, could you please read that?
Oh, I got this goddamn music going in my head. Okay, I'll try that later. Think of this book as your complete guide to Space Quest 1, Roger Wilco, and the Sarien Encounter. It is designed to help you out of tough spots and lead you into game areas you might not have explored thoroughly.
And I think it's important to note that explaining how a hint book works made sense then, because no one knew how to do anything video gamey. But it might be just as important now because of the format of gameplay help has long died. Like it didn't make sense to people then, and I don't think it makes sense to people now.
There was definitely like a sweet spot.
Right, precisely.
And it might have been like the Final Fantasy 1 style like guidebook.
So what do you say again?
Like there was a sweet spot of like game help from books. Is this making sense?
Yeah, to some degree. Okay, I mean, I see what you mean. So you're just saying Final Fantasy is a similar concept. See, I think, well, to some degree, yes.
You're saying people didn't know how this worked at this point, and I'm agreeing.
Right, for
I'm
sure.
saying by the time Final Fantasy book came around, like people kind of understood how these things operated.
Oh, by the time. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, by the time. Excuse me. I may not even have said it. And then, anymore now, it's actually like, I don't know. Getting help on video games is actually kind of tricky now.
Well, I think it's
I know what saturation is the problem.
I know what you're saying, that there's just so much to choose from, right? Yeah, but it is more straight. It's a more of a straightforward beat by beat walkthrough and actual play videos and shit, showing you exactly what to do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that is not at all how this book is structured or meant to be consumed, or however you want to term it. Yeah, it is very much. The next section is actually going to tell us exactly how the fuck they intend it to be used. So I'll just read that. This book contains every answer to every puzzle in Space Quest 1. How you go about using it can be very important to the quality of your gaming experience. The answers to the hint questions are arranged to reveal a little bit of each puzzle solution each time you uncover one. The starred answer is a sequence of steps to accomplishing the needed task and should only be read if you do not understand how to go about solving the puzzle after reading all the other answers. And they provide an example here. The example opener is, I'm in the kitchen and I needed to make a bologna sandwich. What should I do now? And then they have, 5 bullet points here in a row in an order of kind of reveal, in a slow reveal of what exactly you need to do, in hopes that these little clues will inspire you to make the mental leap to the 5th one without having to read it, basically. Mm-hmm. And they start with, you'll need bread, bologna, cheese, mayonnaise, and a knife. Okay, so that's what I need. The next one is, most of the stuff can be found in the cupboard. Okay, so maybe I would have to check the cupboard or whatever, check some other things. Most of the rest is in the refrigerator, is the third clue.
It would be, of course.
Right. The 4th one is a very specific. The knife is in the drawer. Maybe you didn't think to check the drawer. Okay. I still can't do it. Okay. Finally, what the fuck is the actual, what do we do here? And they very bluntly go through the whole deal in the 5th bullet point with, take out 2 slices of bread and spread them with condiments. Place the meat and cheese on one piece and cover with the second piece, being sure to face the mayonnaise side down, which is, highly specific. Opinion. Right. It would be helpful to have a plate and napkin handy too. And they summate this with, you get the idea, right? And I think we hopefully do.
Yes.
And the next section is the right way versus the wrong way to use this book. Jab, go ahead and handle that.
It is possible to read all the answers to a hint question at the same time. This will give you the solution to the puzzle without any need on your part to figure anything out. Easy, but ultimately unsatisfying. We do not recommend this method. The other way of using a hint book is to reveal only one answer at a time and to try to figure out the solution on your own, only looking at the next answer down when you are genuinely stuck. This method is a bit more challenging, but will increase your enjoyment of the game.
Yep, I think that's beautiful. But ultimately unsatisfying, that terminology specifically, it brings a little tear to my eye that they're pushing you to work for it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just a great example of a game that both you and I have fawned over, like, I didn't really get stuck in Subnautica because I just kind of I don't know. I used the internet a couple times to get through it, but whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the point is trying to get a specific answer when you're stuck in Subnautica is it's unbelievable. It's just not, it's not an easy process to get the answer that you need without I guess as this
ruining
book says, ruining it, ultimately unsatisfying.
Yeah, no, I remember, I'm sure we talked about it at some point or another, or if, I don't know when I was playing that, if it might have been after you jumped off and Jay jumped on. But either way, I certainly talked about it where, going through those walkthroughs with this mentality, that's a super interesting point, actually. The way these are set up, they enable you to, yes, piecemeal specific information to yourself to just nudge you along. The real problem with those walkthroughs and the videos, of course, too, same thing, is that it's not that they're more straightforward like that. It's that there's, even with the, even if they chapter the videos, it doesn't, you still can learn something you don't want to learn, or read something you don't want to read, or see something you don't want to see that will ruin something else. And yes, there was something or other that I was looking for at some point in my play of Subnautica that I don't even think it was a part of the narrative or like what to do. It was like a functional problem that I didn't understand.
Okay.
And
that's actually this is the point I was trying to make. Thank you for reading my mind.
Okay, yeah. So just finding that, and like, yes, the fear with which that I was looking through that documentation, trying to find that answer, and like, I'm not even sure the terminology to use, like this like skimming technique of like only letting myself see a word or two and not even consecutively in a sentence, just like trying to find a word that rang true for the area that I was trying to find this answer for, to get me to a place where I felt a little more comfortable reading full sentences so I didn't ruin something in a game like that, where yes, the whole foundation for enjoying it is the discovery process, which is very much how these games are structured. These adventure games, Space Quest and shit. So yeah, for sure. That's the real shit of it, I think. Less so than even maybe the intent or mentality of the creator of the walkthrough or whatever. Yeah,
it's tricky to do, and it seems like this book is trying to avoid that, which is cool.
Yep, and even like just and we'll talk about that too when we get there. With just the different, they tried different ways of doing that. So maybe that just speaks to the experimental stage of this part of gaming and this type of game and stuff too, more than anything else. But it is interesting to me too that the way they structured the hint reveal in this with that red decoder shit is not how it was always done. There were precursors to this with markers and shit, and like I said, we'll talk about that. But all very interesting. Yeah, just kind of the again, the wild west aspect of this is a really interesting part of it. So back to the book, they then finish it up with after you finish the game directive, and that reads, the last section of this book contains a point list for the game. If you've played through and want to see what you might have missed, take a look. And again, this is like a proto iteration of the completionist fucking trophy hunt.
The achievements.
They
basically
didn't know
achievements. It really is.
Right. Yes, for sure. Yeah, they didn't know what to call it that yet. But yes, that is I've already beat the game. Now I go back and like maximize what I can get out of this game, and particularly that $140 that I spent in $2023. Yeah. There is then a page and a half of creative work that is written by Roger Wilco himself in character, and that's a really cool, interesting choice for this hint book. My Exploits as a Space Hero, or How I Learned to Stop Thinking and Love the Space Quest series, which is clearly a play on the title of Kubrick's 1964 Cold War satire, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Have you ever seen that movie, Jeff?
Nope.
You should watch it, man. And I will preface that by saying I really struggle to watch anything pre-80s movie-wise. It's all customarily very boring and stilted. The dialogue, the cinematography, all of it kind of just feels like a play happening in front of a camera on sticks, and that is a very boring storytelling form to me. So I was absolutely shocked to enjoy this movie as much as I did. And how smart, brilliant, hilarious, and even I would say kind of contemporary feeling, which again, 1964, fucking forever ago. And I might have watched the movie, it might have been a decade ago I watched it. So, take 10 years off that, but still an insane amount of time had passed. And yeah, I was in awe by how much I was amused and laughed at that movie. It is a really, really smart commentary on the Cold War and just the mentality at the time towards nuclear everything.
Yeah. I'll throw it on the list, actually.
It's
I don't really like movies, actually. They're usually not good.
Most of them aren't, I agree, and this one is. This is a good one. Even within, it's kind of, I think it's odd for a Kubrick movie to some degree. Kubrick the rest of his filmography, while I like a lot of it, I mean, you like Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, that's great.
So you like you're predetermined to like the filmmaker's shit, I think. So that even more so, I think it makes it a good recommendation. But
yeah, okay, I'll check it out.
Very smart.
Jaws pre-'80s, very good.
Yeah, Jaws is good. Yeah, no, I'm not saying there's not any.
I didn't say yes. I did not mean that. I did not mean to come off like that. But I just wanted to refer. That's my favorite movie of all time, and it happens to be pre-'80s. I start thinking about the other ones that are in my top 10 list, and most of them are much more modern.
Right? Yeah, and the funny thing you say that about Jaws, while it may have been in 1974, I believe.
I was 78.
Well, yeah, something like that. 70s either way. It is thought of as, it's the first summer blockbuster. It's a very
75.
It's a very forward thinking, for the time film. While so much of that horror thriller stuff is just common vernacular today, that was like mind blowing cinema. At the time.
I mean, they famously had a ton of issues doing all the filming. Probably now that you say that, probably because it was so new and modern.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Yeah, that
forward,
shark that they built was way beyond anything that
anybody else had done.
Anyone had tried to do animatronic. Well, yeah, no, it's absolutely. Right. And it's funny too how I just listened to something on this recently. It's the beautiful thing about that is that movie would have sucked if that shark would have worked right, because they would have shown it. They would have shown it a ton. And so much of that movie's magnitude is
not seeing the shark.
Yeah, that we can't see it. And there's all this fucking tension that comes out of that would not have been there if Spielberg could have shown that shark as much as he was trying to,
Yeah, which is like he should have known that, because the scariest thing about sharks is you can't see them. Maybe, but the funny thing is, again, that was not even as even the science, the marine science of the time was inconceivably archaic to what we think just common knowledge is of shark behavior, all that shit. Like yes, they were a scary thing in the ocean. That was true at the time, but no one knew shit about them. So, him even taking that movie, I don't think he wanted to necessarily do it, if I recall reading Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, which is a phenomenal film history book, if you want to read a film history book. Nope.
He talked a lot about it in there, or there's a lot of talk in there, rather, about it, how it was, I mean, it's not like... It's not, a shark's creature film was not a sought after job. That's why he got it at that neophyte stage. He was like fucking 20 something when he directed that film.
Gotta eat. So
right. So yeah, there was a lot of really, really opportune happenstance that led to that film being what it became, for sure. Anyways, this is written from a postmodern perspective relative to the happenings of Space Quest 1 after Roger has experienced all that he will go through in sequels 2 through 4. So that's an interesting aspect about it as well. It's written in a delusionally comical tone, propping Roger up as a hero much more so than the games actually play out, which tends to be by way of victory by the blindest of idiot luck, if you don't know how Space Quest games work. This was probably conceived as more of a sales tool to sell copies of the sequels than anything else, I think. He's kind of talking about the narrative of the sequels past this game in this kind of interesting and fantastical way that I think is intended to incentivize you to want to play them.
Yeah, it just kind of gives you like a little brief glimpse into what the games are and wants you to be like, oh, that seems silly and fun. Let me try it out for 140, 20.
Yeah, for $140. Right. Pages 8 and 9 are housekeeping stuff about how to work with the point-and-click UI, and I think rather inarguably should have been in the manual and not the hint book. I don't know what the fuck that wasn't included for, but they also explain how to change the animation speed, which was a major thing in 1990 PC land. That, again, it's just something that there's no way for you to even... A modern gamer that didn't live through this era, trying to explain this to them, I think... it would just melt their brain. Yeah. So this game could run on a very wide swath of machines. We talked about the disparity of our original playthrough machine versus today's, but even within the spectrum of computers that even in a reasonable number of standard deviations from the mean at the time would have been, even if you say just one, maybe we're talking computers that would have been retailed between 1989 and 1995, maybe a 6-year span. The processor variance, the RAM availability variance, I talked about how even at the time behind my computer was, that's why it was a hand-me-down, because Ted had bought a 75 megahertz Acer, so that's a 50, say if it was 20, it's a 55 megahertz difference, which isn't a lot of megahertz, but it is more than 3 times as much, almost 4 times as much. So that machine capability variance was huge, and it made how fast these programs, modern computers have shit built into them to stabilize this. Like the emulators in particular of these old games, they balance this shit out behind the curtain without even the user having to think about it. They are able to emulate the speed of the machines the games originally happened on, and are able to, basically dial down how fast the computer that it's playing on is actually running, which is, light years faster. And if it ran at the speed that the computer that we're playing on now wanted to run it, you wouldn't even be able to see what's happening. It would look like neurons circling a fucking, in an atom. So, yeah, you could go in and manually change the speed at which the game ran. Mm-hmm. So, because in these, we're pointing and clicking here. The parser version you have, this is even more important because you're just using arrow keys to move around. So if the game speed's too fast, you hit left and you just walk off a fucking cliff 4 screens over before you can even fucking do anything, I was
having a hard time getting indoors sometimes because I was running on the fastest speed sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, huge fucking thing at the time. So they actually bother to explain this to you, and that you might want to tweak it if you're having trouble controlling your shit. Which is, just such a testament to the time that I loved thinking about.
Yeah, like nobody will ever have to worry about that ever again.
Right. The next 6 pages are a cool look into Sierra HQ and the process of updating the game from the original AGI version, which is what that version you were playing is the AGI version, and this modern VGA version we are playing. And some notable things in here for me were the improved graphics that led to them building out actual gameplay sequences quite a bit, the cave systems in particular, and that they used 3-dimensional clay models to create the opening credit sequence, which the image behind me on the video feed right now is the first of those 3. They actually did kind of, think fucking Tim Burton Beetlejuice type shit to build those, and then film them and then digitize them in this pixelated form, which is a lot of work to just do an opening credit sequence. But that's what they were trying to do, is step up the game significantly for these. The rest of the book is actual pages of hints, and to mask these, they used a tactic that you'd see a lot in toys and shit in the 80s, and I think this is really fun. They use these blocks of red ink printed on top of a slightly darker, bluish maybe, text color, and you'd get, as an accompaniment to books like this, or any toy that used this kind of technology, if you want to call it technology, you would get a decoder tool with a transparent but red-tinted piece of plastic that you could hover over the text, and it would, in theory, make the red ink invisible and the text below easy to read. And I tried really hard, unsuccessfully, unfortunately, to find a shot of the decoder tool they provided with this. I'm sure it was something they, any time it came with anything, it would be themed. It would be a little tool you could hold in your hand, so it would be themed. It probably was some sort of, space questy type thing, that I was sad to not be able to find an image of, because I'm sure it was fun.
Yeah, that's wild. You should be able to just find like a red light, filter, right?
You could also do,
that would work, but I'm sure they did some sort of like specific thing.
Yeah. No, it was just literally a piece of, it basically, honestly, what it was if you can think of 3D glasses, those red and blue 3D glasses, it was just the red panel.
That's kind of what I pictured. Right.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, holding it over would make the red shit go away, basically. You could read whatever's below it. So. So looking for that, I also found the AGI hint book, and those utilize. So I was saying, there's this is the hint book that is specifically for the VGA version, point and click version. The hint book that they released back, and I forget what the year was. I probably will have it somewhere here in the notes. But when they released the AGI version, the parser version, they also had a hint book then, and those utilized markers that would make hidden text appear when you colored what appeared to be an empty box with it. So instead of the clearly visible question, then a red box covering up all the bullet points with the answers per se that's in this book, you have the question and then just a white box with a border below it, and you would take the marker and start just coloring strips horizontally at the top to slowly reveal text that would kind of tip you off on what to do. And I absolutely have a memory of my cousin having one of these for either game, either this game, or this is also where I played King's Quest 3 at her house when I was like fucking, I don't know, 5 or 6. And it's a great bit of nostalgia to think about its impression on me at the time, this book with the mark and doing the tactileness of using the marker to get answers, and like, again, kind of just like I described the Subnautica thing, how you're reading in like a weird way, but you're doing the same thing. You're coloring and like literally reading as you're coloring, like, and you want to stop the second you get it
as quickly as you can, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just completely different.
We need to bring this back. This is the way to do it. I don't mean to sound like the fucking guy who's like, the only real music ever made was when I was a teenager, which is also true. Emo is the best. But yeah, we need to go back to this.
All that shit, everything retro is new, as they say. So it's very much, I think, something that would get embraced if you took the initiative to, it's got to be properly marketed for it to be consumed. But yeah, I think if someone with the reach and visibility to attract attention to it and get it to the retro heads that would really, really dig that kind of thing, I think, yeah, it very much is something that you could do with modern hint stuff, especially with these kind of games. Because yeah, man, I like I said, there is, like, you bitch about it with a little more vehemence. There is it doesn't exist. Like, this kind of slow burn reveal of information for these games does not exist in any form on the internet that I know of, anyways. By all means, write in to isohpodcast@gmail.com if we're doing it wrong and you know of where we can find stuff like this for games like Subnautica. Or, God, just fucking, which you still got to play, you fucking twat. Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds is like the greatest example of this. Like, there was same thing. That game is even more.
It seems like it would really lend itself to this style.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. Oh my God, because.
Oh wow, yeah. Just the little bit that I did play, like, it would really work.
Yeah, because it is all about information. There is no like actual. There's a little bit of like, oh, you have to go here and do this to make this happen. But because of the time loop aspect of the game, actual moment to moment accomplishment is irrelevant. You're just trying to understand. And yes, when I had the few times I had looked stuff up again for just functional fucking UI stuff, almost, I was
horrified.
Yeah, terrified. Especially because there is a whole that game has a whole zeitgeist about how much you will ruin your life if you do that to yourself. Like, to deprive yourself of the natural reveal of that game's story is a tragic thing to do to yourself if you're enjoying the game. So yeah, I think this shit could land if it was done right. Yeah, I think these were better for encouraging you to sort puzzles on your own, and you could, kind of sort of see the text below the red ink in these decoder pages if you let your eyes wander too much. And that was an aspect of this too, that you could kind of, in the same way, again, I just described, you could kind of see it. So like, the slight marring of it almost did that for you. That may be subconsciously where I came up with that idea of only reading, is having this super latent memory of these decoder type hint books. Because yeah, the marker situation was a more deliberate admission of failure. Because
you can't take that back.
Right, exactly, and even the thing is with these, you don't even necessarily have to decode the red portion. Just reading the question might
could
jar whatever you need jarred to think of a different approach or a different solution or whatever it might be, you know. So yeah, just a really, really cool aspect of these games is the way. And you had, because again, no internet, you had to have something like this because it is a very, when you hit a wall, you hit a fucking wall in these games. Yeah, it is.
You didn't just get on the internet and check, not necessarily, especially if Mad Mike had a phone call coming in.
Yeah, right.
Fuck off the internet. Keep this off the recording because I don't want to give pretty good business ideas away to the general public. You could probably do this for games like Subnautica. You could just like produce your own hint book with this kind of shit.
For sure. And that's,
and like stylize it, like, like bound it up somehow, like in a book. I mean, you could just do it with like fucking, Microsoft Word or something. I'm sure there's like a reveal thing or whatever. But yeah, like you could easily like stylize these, bind them up, and sell them on Etsy for like, money.
Oh, 1,000%.
It's actually not a terrible idea.
It's the official unlicensed. That's the text it's like those books, those How to Win a Nintendo Games books.
That's not illegal to do that. Like, here's my hint book about Subnautica.
No,
well, everything's illegal against the little guy, man. You don't disparage me.
You might get a letter and have to do some litigation.
Call a lawyer. It costs $600 an hour. Here we go.
Right? Yeah. I'm sure. Especially if it really started making money, they would try to fucking jump your shit a little bit or have their lawyers at least scare you. But yeah, I mean, as long as you can't copyright ideas, you have to copyright an actual piece of work. So if the text is actually original that you're writing, what you're writing about is fine. It's commentary on an existing thing. That's the documentary IP precedent. That's the reason documentaries can exist.
Okay, I see the connection there.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You are allowed to have commentary on other people's creative works.
Mm-hmm.
It just has to be original commentary and not a repurposing of someone else. It's why AI is a thing right now.
Okay. All right, so we will back into the podcast.
Yes, so we will discuss the applicable sections and how much we chose/had to use them after discussing the corresponding part of the game tackled without hints. scidhub.exe at your DOS command prompt, and the program fires up, starting with the iconic Sierra Online logo full screen. And now that we're talking about it, it jarred a thought in my mind. These all had a really fun, if you're fucking a DOS nerd of the time, all these games came, once you installed them, they always had a batch file that was just sq1.bat or kq3.bat, that would, and if you know what batch files are too, they were basically like a really short text file that was a series of DOS commands that a lot of these games, again, part of the customization of your shitty old system to make these games work on it would be to allocate a certain amount of physical memory, whatever it might be. All these it's the CONFIG.SYS file, basically. Like the CONFIG.SYS and autoexec bat files were startup files that would do this exact thing. But you could also do this stuff with commands and DOS and kind of reallocate things to tweak and make a game or make the system better geared to be able to run a certain program. And these batch files that would often have some sort of additional stuff in them that would take it out of the user's hands and kind of streamline it. Because when I first got this, I also had trouble running it in DOSBox, even after the mounting part of it, the mounting a drive and whatever. Like those are just DOSBox commands that you didn't have to do with the OG version of DOS. But yeah, this skid hub, I found this by trial and error because there were some other files in there that yes, I ran and I didn't start the program. And I was looking for one of those batch files, but there fucking wasn't one of them. So that was an interesting thing to compare.
Well, I'm glad you troubleshot it first because I'm gonna get that set up for next time.
Yeah, it's major quality of life difference. The AGI version of this super clunky. So
I guess it was fun just for me to do because it made me just work for it a little bit, and that means we can also talk. If we were smart, actually, we would just have one of us do one and one of us do the other.
That. So yeah, and I guess They mention in the hint book how they talked about the differences, and the actual differences story-wise are minuscule. They basically just did things that embraced the the graphical fidelity, I guess is probably the best way to term it, because you had a higher fidelity and could see what the fuck and understand what the fuck was happening visually better. They could build things out a little more and add some more, I don't know, just interactivity things, that couldn't be in those older, really pixelated versions because you didn't know what the fuck you were looking at. It's not a bad idea to maybe alternate those and play the different versions.
We don't need to complicate this.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this one plays out. That's part of the beauty of the first one. Once I start saying again in that opening sequence, we'll know a little bit better how to do these. So the intro music kicks in. Well, actually, that's a good question. When you fire it up on there, does that? They don't have those Sierra logos, so they didn't have the graphical fidelity. Maybe they did, though. When it starts up, does it have a Sierra logo?
When I fired it up, it did the Sierra. Let me pull it up one more time to confirm that. What game is this? Space Quest.
Right. Yeah, I guess maybe it's probably just a clunkier version. So, yeah, I think of that opening thing as a VGA thing. Mm-hmm. That they didn't have those in the old text parser ones, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, this hits me with just Space Quest Chapter 1, the Sarien Encounter, with some music. So
yeah, because they do it like the way they did these logos for the VGA versions. They like fully embraced that they could it looks like a medallion. You can see like a little bit of a shine on, like a light hitting it. They try to add some perspective to it, some visual perspective, some 3D-ness, to it. In any event, the intro music kicks in, and we cut to a series of 3 signs that were what the hint book said were clay models: Space Quest 1, the Sarien Encounter, starring Roger Wilco. And it then cycles through all the credits in the manual masthead, various space objects flying through space. Like, there's just a bunch of imagery, space imagery they make part of the sequence before getting to a shot of the Sarien warship modeled after a green praying mantis attaching itself to a golden spaceship, and that is the Arcata. And the image behind me right now is this actual shot. There's some text cut in here to deliver the story we read in the manual, if you're not a big manual reader. And then it cuts to a bi-level shot of the hallways of the Arcata, Roger bumbling out of the broom closet, and a flying robot whizzes by, spinning in circles and hands in the air, while a red alert warning alarm sign goes off next to the door. We can also see a dead body on the lower floor, and then a text box pops up. You're startled by the sound of an alarm. Breaking through it, the intercom crackles with the frightened voice of a technician shouting that the Arcata has been boarded by unknown intruders. The transmission ends abruptly in a soundstorm of white noise, soon overtaken by the cold din of silence. You hear the overly cheerful voice of the ship's computer say, "Destruct sequence is engaged, 15 minutes till detonation." And that part is actually delivered in a full digitized speech female voice that is indeed overly cheerful, I would say, for the information she's delivering. And then a clock showing 15 minutes appears in the lower right corner of the screen and begins counting downward immediately. So yes, I'm certainly interested to hear how the AGI version might differ on that opening thing. There's clearly no voice. So no digitized voice.
Yeah, there was no voice. I don't remember even the warning about the self-destruct, because I went over that 15 minutes and then self-destructed. And I was like, oh shit, that can happen. So I started over.
They don't give you text in the beginning?
I don't remember seeing it. I mean, I played it, I don't know, like a week ago, or maybe, I don't know. I don't remember. I could play it again. It takes seconds to catch up. That would be really interesting, because what that would insinuate is they expect you to read the manual no matter what. And and that's not implausible for the time to, like I said, that we've said a million, it's beating a dead horse to say the expectation then was you were going to read that cover to cover, or at least a good portion of it, particularly definitely the setup. The story setup was often excluded by necessity from the actual in-game experience because of an inability to portray it. So
But that would be crazy to me if they don't have the text like explaining what that counter means.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it real quick here. But yeah, that could be like an anti-piracy thing too. Like, oh, sorry, you don't have the textbook. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you don't need to know the information. Yeah,
you are startled by this. You're startled by the sound of an alarm, which is followed by an urgent voice, which warns that the Arcadia has been boarded by unknown intruders. It ends abruptly, and then I'm just playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, it says the alarm. At least you understand it's an alarm. I guess nothing about detonation, though.
Yeah, nothing about detonation for sure.
Huh. Well, yes, then you're playing Space Quest, and the way you do that in this SCI version that I played anyways is with a point-and-click cursor that you can turn into various different methods of interacting with the environment by way of a menu bar you make appear by moving the cursor anywhere along the top of the screen. There are 10 buttons on that menu bar. There is walk, look, take, / manipulate by hand, speak, smell, taste, and those last two being present or wild, I think, and present the opportunity for a ton of the game's humor, the smell and the taste options. And there is an empty box that you populate by way of the next button, a little satchel that brings up a box showing everything in your inventory. And with that inventory box up, you can still access all the menu bar stuff to allow you to look at, manipulate, smell, taste the items in your inventory. In this case, you currently start with, or you start the game with 3 Buckazoids, and that, as I mentioned, is the common currency of the galaxy at the time, and that is it as far as inventory goes. So yeah, well, I guess I'll finish this menu bar shit. There's a 9th button that's a little control board slider that opens up a dialog box that's a bunch of settings shit. You can save, restore, restart, quit, return, yada, 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 play. And then there's also sliders right there for you to change visual detail, kind of just the graphical fidelity to some degree or another. If it's too detailed, maybe your 20 megahertz system is slower than you want it to be, whatever it might be. You can also change audio volume, and then there's the game speed slider too that we mentioned earlier. There's also a credits button and a really smart help button that changes the cursor to a question mark, and you can click on anything on screen to bring up a dialog box explaining what the fuck it does. And I was very surprised that it had an in-game help. Like, that's still the way the help interface is in Civilization 6, So I was shocked that it had that in this game.
Yeah, I was too. That one is present. I think you're going to ask what my shit looked like.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, what the fucking. I mean, I guess maybe you type inventory for it to list off an inventory. How do you look at your inventory?
So you look at your inventory by hitting tab. Yeah, you inventory by tab, or you can escape and then you go into the menus above. At the top of the screen. I got Sierra, File, Action, Special, and Speed.
Oh, so it has like a Windows title bar. I forgot that it even had that.
Yeah, but like Action only has C object and inventory. So they have hotkeys attached to those. C object is F4, but that's it. So like when I played this game, I just had to like go to everything and just like
type.
Look computer. Nope, that doesn't work. Look panel. That worked a lot. One that pissed me off was look screen. Like, okay.
yeah.
Other than that, that's kind of it.
It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, the way, even in the point and click version, that data archive machine works in a stupid way.
Oh, okay.
So it's funny to me that almost makes me feel better about it, that it was deliberate, that they like carried that clunkiness over, which is probably, that I can see that being a deliberate creative choice because Roger's a moron. So you're not supposed to understand how to use it, and it should feel goofy.
Yeah, you could just roleplay the shortcoming.
Yeah. So, funny thing, you're playing that AGI version because there's a very interesting note here because there's a score counter on that settings screen. And the AGI version of the game, and I believe this is always in the title bar in the top right? Now that I think about it, I do remember that title bar. It shows the score. Like,
yeah, I got the score there too.
Okay, right. So this, the AGI version of the game has 202 possible points that you can accumulate in the game, which I assumed meant that there was just, because there's 201 in the VGA version, the SCI version. So I assume that meant that there was just one stupid small accomplishment that somehow was lost in the interface upgrade, Mm-hmm. But that is actually not the case. You can Google lists of scored events in the game in both versions side by side and look at how much each event is worth, and the numbers are all over the fucking place. So it just happens in the aggregate to net out to a 1 point difference in the upgrade by way of a million different variables as opposed to just one. So I thought that kind of interesting.
Okay.
So if you're a total Space Quest head, that is probably an interesting Google to look at the differences of those, and because it's the number of points you get. To some degree, there's probably some incentive to make it like, how hard of an accomplishment is this? That's how many points, a correlating number of points relative to the overall should be accumulated for accomplishing a harder task versus an easy one. But I also kind of look at it knowing Sierra's mentality for these games, and kind of there's a humorous component to it that I almost think of that Around the Horn. Is it Around the Horn show on ESPN where they award points, but it's arbitrary?
Yes.
There's no actual right, yeah, and it's just got the host. He just gives you points. He just randomly clicking the button when you say something based on his own in the moment perception of how the show's going.
Right.
Which I think maybe is more what they had in mind, which is probably why it changed so much for the upgrade, because they're just like, I don't care.
It doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, it doesn't fucking matter. And then the last button on the menu bar is a help icon that offers the same help dialog boxes for each of these buttons. So it's basically just allows you to do it with the rest of the game. You can also in the case of this UI, you can right click on the mouse button to cycle through these interaction modes a bit faster, which is a welcome quality of life offering that, again, I was kind of surprised to see or find rather. So yeah, so tab, I guess just to be fully, so tab, so you had to type everything. It's worth saying then, the way the parser works is, yes, you have to type everything. Did you even think to smell things or did you even remember that? Okay, yeah.
No.
So I'd be curious.
I can certainly kind of
is that even an
try right
aspect?
Smell room. That does not compute.
That does not compute.
Taste
So they don't.
room's not going to work.
Okay, try an individual item though.
So I tried taste room. It said that act would lack any serious gratification.
Okay, that's kind of what it says.
Actually,
yeah, that's kind of what it says for most of the stuff that you try to use those commands on in the point and click too. It's like you don't.
Oh yeah, I just got the key card. Let me try to taste the key card. Taste key card. That act would lack any serious gratification. Taste. Okay, so the
same thing.
Card.
Go try to taste one of the dead bodies, because that definitely gives you.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that definitely gives you a specific piece of copy in the point and click that's relevant to only tasting that.
Taste body. That act would lack any serious gratification.
Okay, so
let me try from the other side though.
Yeah, I think they don't. I think maybe that just wasn't a part of the game. Then they must have introduced that as part of the point and click deal. Just a fun. Fun
can't
thing.
taste or smell the bodies.
Okay. So that's interesting. That was a new idea that they had for this UI. They must have just thought that the potential for this was limitless, and why not have, when you put it in icon form, they start thinking about the full five senses of, because it's an eye that they use for look on the bar. They have a hand for touch, so they must have just been like, well, we already have half of them. Right. And then there's a talk one, a talk bubble rather. Not that that's a sense, but interesting. So now we start exploring. You can go left or right, and you'll find elevators that can oscillate you between the upper and lower hallways. And does it function the same way? Is it a bi-level deal on the
Yeah,
AGI?
It's just like, remember that game Spy vs. Spy?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's that. It's as soon as I came out of the custodial closet, I was like, oh shit, Spy vs. Spy.
So periodically, you'll get a message that reads, as you're just moving around the space, you'll get a message that reads, you hear footsteps approaching, in response to which you need to hop in an elevator to the opposite level stat before the Sarien soldiers enter from off screen that are patrolling the ship and trying to vape people. And how, does it function the same? Like, do you even have those interactions, I guess, in the AGI version? I would assume so. That's so much of the mechanic here.
Yeah, that one works exactly the same. Hear footsteps, get away. If you don't, you get clapped.
Okay, word. So if you're able to evade them and get out of the space that they're walking into quick enough, you get a message that reads, failing to notice anyone or anything in the room, the Sarien guards decide to check elsewhere. Way to go, Roger. If you dick around too long, though, and they see you, they mow you down with their laser rifles. Yes, and it reads, the aliens observe their handiwork briefly before looking for others to process in similar fashion. And after your body slumps to the floor, in the case of the VGA version, a dialogue box pops up that shows a close-up shot of Roger dead on the ground with a hole right in the middle of his forehead. And the text that accompanies that is, as you lie on the floor in a smoldering carbo-gelatinous heap, you just can't help but wonder why you bothered getting up this morning, and then you can choose between restore, restart, quit. And the devs have took the time to give you some funny copy like this for all of the near countless ways this and all Sierra Adventure games can kill you. Do they give you any kind of presentation for die? Did you even die?
No, yes, I died several times, and I got the commentary, though I didn't get the what sounds to be very graphic visual. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. That's not surprising. I would expect that shortcoming to be the case.
I'll be ready for next time.
So to the right, on the lower level, you find dead bodies of a male and female near each other. And looking over them reads, a cursory glance indicates that Dave, a lab technician, is dead. Normally, you wouldn't be able to tell, except that his intestines are hanging out of the scorched opening where his abdominal wall used to be. You remember that he was forced to serve in the Xenon National Guard, and then in a parenthetical it reads, but he wasn't bitter. And yes, this is one of the head research scientists, Blanche. This is the woman. This is one of the head research scientists, Blanche. You wanted to get to know her a little better. However, seeing her ruptured chest wall reveals more about her than you were hoping to learn. And yes, that is a perfect example of how, I don't know, just the tone of the writing in these games is, probably all of Sierra games, is very, death is no big deal. And they want you to feel that. I think that is also a deliberate choice, not just a functional one, to create difficulty. I think they want you to try things. They want you to look at things. They want you to die. That's part of the intended flowchart of gameplay, is to die and have to retry things numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's...
Yeah, the tone's like very blasé, too. I'm imagining that's kind of like says something about the universe that you're existing in, too.
Yes.
Just like, death is normal, and I'm just a duncy custodian kind of blathering through all this as best I can.
That just happens to be in this extraordinary situation.
Right.
Absolutely. There's a passage entryway between them in which a room surrounded in glass that allows you to see the cosmos all around you. And there is a destroyed machine of some kind in the middle of the room, dead bodies flanking each side of it. Examining each of the bodies reveals Roger knows their names as well. And then there's some quip about being able to see their organs. And taking a gander at the machine reveals it is the star generator pedestal, and that it was apparently trash when the Vandals stole the generator itself. There is a small something or other flashing on the side of the pedestal, and if you take a look at it, it reads, you find a small but heavy device affixed to the base of the star generator platform. It appears to be magnetic. That must be how the aliens upset the force field protecting the unit! Exclamation. And examine it in your inventory, it reads, it's a genuine widget. You're not sure what it does, but it's heavy, it looks cool, and it might be magnetic. Please keep this away from the game discs. And a magnet could corrupt and or erase data on old school computer media, folks. We lived in wild times in the 90s.
Be very careful with your magnet collection.
Yes, absolutely. That's a funny...
You remember you set that speaker on top of your...
I was just going to say, that immediately makes me think of fucking up that TV of mine.
TV, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, magnets are a big deal back then. Very influential pieces of technology. Yeah, I did remember this 100%, and judging, we'll get into the hints later about it that I think kind of support this idea, but this is hard to notice. It's probably more. I bet it's more prominent in the AGI version. This little device on the side of the thing, because it had to be.
In the star generator, there is nothing in here. Like, there's no. Where's this at specifically in the room? Do you know?
It's It's stuck to the side of the destroyed machine in the middle.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this machine destroyed, A, and B, there's definitely nothing stuck to the side.
Where do you get...
Is it the translator?
It's the... What is it called? I think it's just called a magnetic widget.
I guess we can carry on and see if you get the same thing I get later.
There's another device in the room that he doesn't know what it is. There's another device in the room that leads out to the spaceship that you get out of that drawer in the VGA version. I think that is the translator.
Yeah, so push left button, and then I take widget. I think they even call it a widget. Nope, they call it a take gadget. And then tab for inventory. I got a gadget. That's all it says.
Oh, okay. Well, it's the same thing. Okay, so you did get it.
I guess so. Turns out.
Okay.
It's just in a different place. It's not in the star generator room.
Oh, really? Where is it?
It's in the right before you go into the airlock.
Okay, so I think that's a different one.
It's where you get the space suit. It's like okay,
right,
so in that fuck, are we doing? We can just cut this, I guess, and just do it another place or keep it. Who cares? In the room right before the airlock, I get the space suit and that widget. What do you get there?
Yeah, you get another gadget. I can't remember the name of it either, but we'll get there. And then yes, the space suit for sure.
Okay, so I just don't get what you got.
Interesting. Huh. Okay, well that'll be a super interesting variance. To the left of the start of where you started there is where you come out of the janitor closet, is a large room with a sit-down CRT console in the middle. And this is what we were bitching about earlier that's super clunky. This is the data archive unit with a robot at attention nearby and a door on the opposite wall. If you sit down and fiddle with the unit, you'll find the screen is broken and the keypad that pops up has the hieroglyphs in the manual. And when you try to go through the far door, a dialog box pops up. And it says the door opens. A man you recognize as one of the head lab scientists stumbles into the room. He appears to be in serious need of some Abdo-Seal abdomen filler. After only a few steps, he hits the floor with a disconcerting thud. And this accompanies a gray-haired guy in a lab coat stumbling in, falling to the floor, and reaching out towards Roger. And if you go over to him and take a closer look, it says a large laser hole has been burned in his uniform, giving you a nice view of previously unexposed tissue. Struggling painfully, he props himself up on one elbow, and then speaking to him, he says, the star generator is in danger. The Arcata is under attack. You better get off this scow if you value your life, Wilco. And it's nice that he knows the janitor's name. It makes him a good team leader, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just before his systems cease all functions short of decay, he looks over toward the shelves full of cartridges and utters astral bodies. With one last gasp, his lifeless form slumps to the floor. And if you try to talk to him again, it says his audible forms of communication will be limited to what he can convey through the venting of bodily gases. So astral bodies is one of the codes in the manual for the Planetary Reference Library catalog. So let's get some piracy prevention action going on. You punch that code in the console, and it tells you cartridge found, now retrieving. And it cuts back to the wide shot of the room. And the robot that was standing next to the machine buzzes over to some storage thing and grabs a cart, brings it back to you at the console. And yeah, so in the AGI version, does this piracy function exist, and how does it get employed?
So it doesn't seem to exist, and I didn't know that's what was going on. I kind of just thought I thought it was just purely part of the story. So I just went to the computer, and after I think I mentioned it previously, dicked around with way too specific typing. Look computer didn't work, but look screen did. Okay. I just typed in...
The screen is broken on the version in the VGA. It doesn't...
No. Yeah, I go to that, and I hit look screen, and then it allows me to access that computer. I type in astral... What was it? Astral bodies?
Astral bodies, right.
Yeah, I type in the words astral bodies, not the hieroglyphs, and then it gets a cartridge, and I take that cartridge. And I have that cartridge in my inventory.
Okay, yeah, that's... So, yeah, then there's definitely no piracy function there.
Yeah, and it seems to indicate that it would have some sort of gameplay mechanic if it's in my inventory.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you'll need that later, no doubt. And yeah, I get it as well from this flowchart of mine.
Okay.
But yeah, they basically gatekept that acquisition, which is, an integral part of the beginning of the game, with that code being from the book. And actually, that's a funny thing too. I didn't think to say when we were going through the book is I think that's the only time you need to reference that table. So really, everything else is fluff there, and this doesn't change. It's always astral bodies that scientist says. Every time you play the game, if it was really a good piracy function, that would change every time, and you would need to know that whole table. Because really, what you need to do is you don't even need to photocopy that page. You can just draw that particular code, and you would be all set for getting past this part of it, or the piracy stuff. So if you keep heading left past that data archive room, you'll hit another dead body. Or dead end rather, with a body, and rooting around through that dead body through that carcass, you'll find that his name was Jerry. So again, Wilco knows everybody's name, which is pretty good on Wilco's behalf as well. And that was Jerry has a key card that you'll need later. And I had accomplished all those things that I've described so far in about a third of that 15-minute countdown, just to give an idea of how quickly you can buzz through this. These hallways all loop around in a circle, and you realize after a few screens in either direction that that's the case. And there's an elevator conspicuously marked with the yellow and black construction hazard pattern on the lower level on one of these screens, and that is the last real POI in the starting area. So obviously, if you know what you're doing, that's applicable to this entire game. If you know what you're doing, you can probably beat this game in like fucking 12 minutes.
Yeah, probably wouldn't take that long.
Right. But even if you're just kind of poking around, 15 minutes is probably pretty generous, as long as you understand the interface and kind of, how the game functions and what it expects of you, I think. It's pretty quick to blow through this and get to that elevator heading downstairs. And then once you come out of that elevator downstairs, it opens up into a large room with a red floor. A couple ship gadgets are in here that you can't really interact with, or Roger doesn't know how to anyways, even if he wants to. And you can head to the right from here, where a machine shaped like a joystick with a couple of screens on it dominates the space. And you get a message that pops up that says, on the screen is some green dude you've never seen the likes of. He seems to be talking, but the audio is out in this area of the ship. And if you walk a little bit into this room, you hear footsteps here, but there's no way in hell you can reach the other side of the screen in time before the Sariens get on screen. And there's no elevator or door to walk into and hide in or move to. So you kind of gotta... This killed me a few times. I didn't figure this out right away. But I eventually was reminded, it came back to me because of just the way this screen looks on the WGA version. The other big prominent fixture in this room, in addition to that oversized joystick, is a large mouse. So it's kind of interesting that they chose that, these control devices for these kinds of games at the time as actual in-room decoration. I think that was a funny choice. But you have to hide basically behind the mouse in the case of there's windows back there, and the windows at each seam of the window have these large steel, I don't know what the fuck to call them, but these wings maybe that stick out of the seams, and between that and the mouse you can completely obscure Roger's sprite and hide behind that for the Sariens coming into the room and then not seeing anything and leaving, and then you can walk out screen right after they leave. So that's how you handle it in the VGA version. I'm guessing it's different.
Yeah, we definitely don't. I didn't have that in this one. Oh, I just got clapped again. What it actually ended up being is you just don't leave the elevator. So, there were times where I would, come out of an elevator, or that elevator where you're about to go all the way to the right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're talking about? Yeah. So, I get into an elevator on another screen. It takes me over to that screen. Now it's a new screen to the right. I guess. I don't really know. And then as soon as that door opens up, it says, you hear footsteps. And I was like, well, then I'm not going to move. And I didn't move, and it gave me something like the alien not seeing anything moves on to his next task or some shit like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there was no, nothing to hide behind. for this one.
So that's a perfect example of them, like, because it's a more.
I didn't realize this would be so different. I would have contacted you about install much sooner than this.
Well, that's exactly what they're saying. Yeah, they kind of like they embrace the fact that because you could see it differently and you had better control also over with the point and click thing,
right?
You know, so they took opportunities to kind of
incorporate that.
Yeah, make it more interactive and more like pixel control dependent, you know? Because there's I'll be shocked if you can do it in the airlock where the ship is. There's a death possibility that I just will be. There's just no way that was part of the move with arrow keys version of the game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. It is kind of interesting to hear the differences, though. I don't think it necessarily detracts from our exchange. There's some level of differences that would be interesting to hear the contrasting experience of, I guess. But
yeah, but so far I wouldn't say it's anything that's like so like, oh my god, that's fucking so different.
Right. Well, that device being gone, like that's interesting.
I guess that actually is a decent example.
That's a pretty good because I don't remember what that does yet, but it does something, and that's why you get it in the beginning. So yeah, it'll be interesting to hear where how that course corrects. So yeah. After I died a few times in here, and this came back to me like a non-flashback, having to hide behind that fucking mouse. I was like, oh yeah. Because this was also something because it's not intuitive. It's just not. Looking at this, even if you're in the mindset of games at this time, whatever, which I clearly was not playing it fucking 2023. But even if you are, I think this puzzle solution is tough to just look at the space and like assume that you can tuck your sprite behind this thing.
Yeah.
Because you can't see I think there might be a little bit of a shadow there to suggest depth for that part of the screen, but it's still not intuitive, I don't think,
Mm-hmm.
A room with a console and an elevator you need the key card for that you got from Jerry's dead cadaver upstairs is to the right. And the console, you dick around with the console, you can see out the window. You can see kind of the bay doors of the airlock on the ship. You can, if you interact with the screen, you can see them open, or interact with the console rather. You can see them open at the window, so you know what you're doing and that you had to do that. And if you do it twice and it closes again, you need to reopen it back up. Probably, right. Anyways. At least if you get downstairs and you can't get out of the fucking thing because it tells you can't, you at least know why. And you can go back upstairs and deal with that. So you take that elevator down from that console room, and is that the same too? Can you actually see? Because that's another thing. It's a fidelity problem. So how do you have to open the bay doors, and is there a visual cue that shows you you're doing it?
Yes, you can. So you do have to open the bay doors. You can see. I actually didn't notice that they were bay doors necessarily at first because the graphics aren't great.
A few black pixels appear.
Right, but it does give you a little animation of them opening. And once they opened, I was like, oh, that's clearly because I had to look at the panel, and it's like, oh, there are buttons to open or close the bay door, and I was like, oh, well, obviously, I want to open the bay door.
Right. Yeah, it also describes it in addition to the visual cue in the VJ version. So you take that elevator down to a lower room again from here, and there is, yes, an unidentified gadget in a drawer that you can open, and then a spacesuit in a closet you can get your drip on with before heading out into an escape ship bay. And there's a TV in here that's broadcasting, in the ship bay, I mean. There's a TV in here broadcasting the talking head of some alien anchor beam, is how they describe it, broadcasting a message about the stolen star generator. So it's kind of like just the CNN being on at the DMV is kind of what I equated that to, just the channel that they picked. And you can absolutely fall off the edge of this catwalk, yes. So walking out to the ship, if you're not careful with the point and click shit, if you click like off to the sides, you can just walk right off the catwalk and die.
Wait, so there's a catwalk, you say?
Yeah, like to get you go through that airlock door in the room with the spacesuit, and then there is a catwalk that goes out to the spaceship open door, and you have to walk across that and not click out in the space on the other side of the catwalk, or your guy will die. I'm guessing with the arrow keys, they don't expect that of you, though.
Yeah, I'm about to try and get there myself. We'll see what happens.
It doesn't make, it's funny, too, because that doesn't make any sense. If you've opened the bay doors, anyways, there should be no gravity in here.
Gravity would be artificial, either from spinning or magnetism, so that's not implausible. There would be no air, so you can't go out there without the suit.
Yeah, I guess gravity is not something that would just seep through a door, right? Okay.
No,
yeah,
that's a physical thing. You have to spin or magnets.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. So
though spinning with the door open, no, that shouldn't make a difference. We're spinning with the door open on planet Earth, in theory.
Right.
And we don't fly off, because that's not exactly how it works.
Right.
No, but there's a vacuum of pressure, though. That absolutely would matter.
Right. That was what I'm thinking with the bay door.
It's a pressure, not a gravity thing. Open door, I guess. That doesn't work. I'm just trying to hurry this airlock. Okay. Open air.
So inside the ship is a view of Roger strapped into the cockpit. Are you out there now?
I'm trying to get there, but yes, anyways, please proceed.
Okay, so yeah, inside the ship is a view of Roger strapped into the cockpit. It's the image I have behind me, or at least basically anyways, the image I have behind me right now. And you have to buckle your seatbelt first and foremost. If you don't do that, like, you can't do anything. It won't let you start the ship or anything. Which is
I went back and tried that. I fence tested that. I was like, do I just die if I don't do it? And they just don't let you go. Right,
which is funny. That's very buckle your seatbelt. That was a public service announcement of prominence of the time. So that's just a cultural zeitgeist joke to some degree or another.
Right.
That might not land today as well. And then once you buckle your seatbelt, you then hit the power button switch on a row of 3 buttons in front of your face, which are you're very much, in my case with the point and click shit, you're kind of just like clicking around trying to figure out, because there's so many gadgets on the control dashboard, but you can't interact with any of them. So it took me a while to find this and figure it out. And then once you do kind of find this hotspot, a close-up box pops up of the 3 buttons, and you can individually push any one of the 3, and they all do individual things. If you have to hit the power switch is the one on the right, and then you can hit the joystick. You have to use the joystick in front of them, and that just takes the ship right out into space. So there's really not a ton to this. I'm guessing those are just simple text commands. You didn't have to look around or anything, right?
Yeah, just gave me a text prompt that basically had all the keywords in it that told me what to do. Really?
So it gave you an option set?
I wouldn't call it an option set. It's just yeah, let me see if I can get in there. I can't fucking figure out how to work this goddamn computer now. Push airlock. Oh, God, Jesus Christ. That worked.
Open door?
No, it was you look at the panel, it's there's a button that says airlock, so I said push airlock button, and it's no, you can't do that. And then it said push airlock, and that worked. Whatever.
Yeah, that's why it's such a massive upgrade to the VGA version, because that shit's interesting to talk about, I guess, maybe for the purpose of this podcast, but it's so rough. You can so frequently have the answer but not structure it properly.
Right.
And it just doesn't get it. And you can it's just a level of extra what's that word? Obfuscation? What's the fucking word?
Oh shit! What is it? Now you got it. Obfuscation.
They know what we're talking. They know what we're talking about. Even
don't worry, I'm going to be an engineer one day.
Yeah. But it's an extra layer of that to an already very, very fucked up series of problems in these games that you just don't need. You just don't need it. It was
It's just with the point and click, I'm sure it's going to be much, much better.
Yes, much smoother.
I walked into this room and I just I walked towards the open airlock or the open door, and I just walked right out into space. Congratulations, Jab! You have found your way off the Arcada.
It doesn't even have the cockpit?
Well, there's a cockpit. There's a ship that I just got up, but I was let me try to walk out the window first, and I did, and now I'm just floating.
Oh, okay. So that's fun. I don't even think you can get there in this version. So maybe they're just replicating that death or creating a death of similar nature.
Yeah, because there's nothing here I would call a catwalk. Enter
Okay.
pod. Okay, yeah, I'm here, and then I say look. Okay. Look. Oh, the fucking ship blew up. Are you kidding me? But that's very like cinematic and dramatic though. Like I just got in the pod and the fucking ship blew up.
and the arcade blows up. Arcada,
Yeah, Arcada.
Yeah.
Also, this game, the very beginning, this fucking first thing you play without the aliens invading your ship is just Subnautica. It's like right before you get on the pod in Subnautica.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you get in, you put your seatbelt on, you fucking shoot out, and that's when the game starts.
Yeah.
So we should come up with like some fan fiction that links the two.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Can sell that with our hint book and make $1 million. So once you go down to space, it cuts to the wide view in space of the Sarien ship latched onto the Arcada that you get in the opening credits, and the Sarien ship lets go and flies off. Then the escape pod rockets out from the Arcada and away, and then the Arcada blows up. So, funny enough, no matter how much time you have left on that timer before detonation, that sequence happens in the same like amount of as you're leaving, I guess is the way to describe it. No matter
still
what.
a near run thing,
right? Yeah. So it's funny that I don't know, they just
you got to do it though, right?
Yeah,
like
suspension
imagine a
of
movie
disbelief.
where that didn't happen.
Right. Exactly.
We get away and like 10 minutes later it blows up. Like okay.
Right? Yeah, that's very not quite as climactic. Yeah, so back to the cockpit once you're in space, and there are 2 buttons on that row of buttons that it gives me in the VGA version. The first is labeled Auto Nav button, and when operative, it like gives you a description as well. It says when operative, it allows the pod to navigate to the closest habitable planet. And then the second button is labeled in all caps. This button is not to be pushed at any time. And I pushed I pushed the second one before reading the labels. And in my case, it like this and this is what I have behind me image-wise now. This happens whether you do the auto nav button either. It's just like kind of it's going through light fucking what do you call that fucking warp travel or whatever. It's its visualization of that. But a kaleidoscope effect happens outside the windshield, and the ship transports back to the Middle Ages on Earth, crash landing to the side of Castle Nottingham, which I believe is the castle in Robin Hood, if I recall correctly. Oh no, that's the Sheriff of Nottingham. Maybe.
Yeah, it takes place near Nottingham, it seems.
Yeah, I guess it's probably Castle Nottingham as well. But it's a great death either way. It's a super fun death. How does that? Do you have those buttons in the AGI version?
So in the AGI, I've got it's got auto nav, power, and do not. Actually, it says don't push.
Okay.
Which I found funny. I thought we stopped there, so that's as far as I got. I didn't navigate the ship at all.
It's pretty close, yeah. You basically...
And since I'm right at the point now where, like, I got my seatbelt on, and then I tried to push the power button, and the ship blew up, so I'll have to restart.
Okay. I'd be curious to hear how that death goes, the don't push button.
Yeah, I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
The ticket here is, of course, the auto nav feature, which sets you on a course for a planet called Corona, and you get that same kaleidoscope effect in the VGA version. And you get like a little bit of a cinematic approaching here. When you coming up on Corona, it kind of has Mars vibes. It's like a reddish-looking hue, and you buzz into the atmosphere and then skip across a vast, barren red desert before coming to a crash-landed stop. And the text box that pops up once you come to a stop reads, "Thank you for flying Arcada Getaway Pod Lines. It's nearly been a pleasure serving you. Tell a friend if you've got one." And that is it. That is the stopping point. So yeah, you were super close.
Fucked it up again.
Getting to the planet.
It's funny. It's got that. It's got also that little Subnautica dystopian capitalist service vibe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
Yeah. It's kind of. I'm seeing a lot of connections here.
Yeah. Well, that's probably so much. Like you just Brave New World. Like those. They may be different, but the tonality, the dystopian thing, the hopelessness, I guess, that accompanies that kind of science fiction writing is probably the most, there's not a lot, I guess what I'm getting at here is there's not a lot of science fiction futuristic writing where everything just works out and it's great.
Yeah. I saw something recently, and by recently I mean maybe in the past year, YouTube or a podcast or maybe a book. I don't think I know how to read, but maybe. But I saw something that was talking about kind of the ways that science fiction was written throughout time. And it might have been like post, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Maybe that seems a little too convenient. But there was some event that happened that kind of changed the zeitgeist about how people wrote about science fiction. And it went from very like flowery and hopeful,
optimistic,
like Jetsons kind of shit to like, which is not a good example because that happened after World War II. But optimistic to like, hellscape, this is gonna kill us all.
Right.
So there was something, I gotta look that up because that was very interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
it was definitely a tone shift at some point.
Yeah, the nuclear event, I'm sure that
didn't help. I'm sure
the Cold War, the rate, because could
have been the Cold War. Actually, is just like this looming technology over you at all times. I mean, like, now there's an existential threat. Like the Mongols can always come over the horizon and like destroy your city. Your nation, like they could always do that, but the Mongols weren't going to destroy the entire race of humans.
Yeah.
Like now that exists, and like no humans had literally ever. I mean, even the Black Death, like not even close to killing all humans, and it killed a ton of them. Yeah. But now we have this like new technology, which was supposed to save us. Just technology in general, supposed to save us all, and here it is looming over us like the mythical sort of Damocles. So yeah, probably that, honestly.
Yeah, I also think there's probably some level of influence, like the race to the moon was a component of the Cold War. Mm-hmm. While certainly marketed as like this beacon of hopefulness for humanity and what can accomplish, it happened in this militaristic way where it was a race against the biggest on Earth rival of the two competing entities trying to get there. So even that like had an air of militarism to it. You know what I mean? Which militarism also sometimes marketed as a way of demonstrating dominance, hope, whatever, prosperity because of your the arsenal you have built up is a demonstration of your ability to deal with any whatever could come. Sure. But yes, when it becomes irrelevant, when you hit kind of like the 32 gigabytes of RAM, you hit the max no matter what. It's just instant death no matter who does it, what happens, how it's employed, whatever. I mean, there's a certain level of cynicism I think that accompanies that. Like, this is what we were striving for, and look what it got us. Is probably just a more simpler way to put it. That I think that makes total sense for there to be a huge shift in the storytelling once those things become part of the common understanding or viewing of technology in general.
Yeah, I'll have to try and hunt this down again because that was really interesting. I think it's like if you compare like Twilight Zone shit, it's like a little, even that sci-fi stuff gets weird, but like it wasn't so like, this is going to kill us all. Anyways,
Hopeless.
Hopeless is a great way to sum that.
We'll call this segment the Hint Book Tips Decoder Reveal, and we will just be going through the questions and the answers in the hint book for the parts that we played. And yeah, it's just such a wild way to format a strategy guide. But it does allow them to have infinitely more character than virtually any other kind of game documentation we've ever looked at for this podcast. Like even the Final Fantasy one, which we commended endlessly for its storytelling benefit and like helping paint this world and yada yada yada, it still didn't allow for the free form creative writing that this I think did.
Or especially without giving it like explicitly away how to do something.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the first one we get here is the Arcada is going to self-destruct. What do I do? And then we have get off the ship before it blows up for one thing, and that works its way to don't leave the ship until you've been given the data archive twice, or been to the data archive twice, the star generator room, the central control area, and the flight preparation room. So it basically just tells you, go to all the places, explore everything, and make sure you pick up every item in there.
Yeah, and you got to go to data archives twice because that scientist doesn't stumble in until you go the second time.
And that's how they describe it. For me, though, that's not how it went. Like,
Really?
I think it's just trying to do 2 doors. Because, yeah, I didn't... It was weird. It functioned 2 different ways for me, too. Like, the first time I went in there, I came from the right and tried to go through the door on the left. And before I got to the door, he came in. And then when I had to restart and redo that part, I think in that case I came from the left maybe, and had to leave the room and come back to get him to, because I knew he was supposed to queue, you know.
Yeah.
And when I came in and he didn't queue, I was like, "What the fuck?" Left and came back. So yeah, so I don't know what exactly. I mean, it says
when I did
twice.
it, I would come in from the right. He's not going to show up, so I just go all the way through to the next thing,
and then
go immediately back, and then he shows up.
Okay.
Weird.
Yeah. Next one is, what's the deal with all these bodies everywhere? And the first one here is they're dead, Jim, and the only thing I can think of is that's Star Trek reference.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I didn't really watch the original series. I don't know what the doctor must be talking to Jim.
Right, correct. Yeah. Jim is Shatner. I'm guessing that's a Spock thing.
Okay. Well, Spock was not a doctor, but yeah, anyways.
But he was the one that would like say obvious things matter-of-factly because
yes, Vulcans are very logical and
right, exactly. So I think even not being a Trek,
I guess it might not even be the doctor. Yeah, it might not be the doctor speaking at this point. Okay. Right. Yes, right. But I think that is a Star Trek reference. Yes.
Yep. And yeah, they slowly work their way here to you have to search Jerry and get his key card.
Right. Now in mine, here's a curious thing. We don't have to stay here long, but in mine, I went to the first time I played this, went over, search body. He has a key card. Cool. Went about my thing.
Didn't take it. Yeah.
Didn't take it.
Yep.
I was like, that's a dick DM thing to do.
Yeah, that's and they mentioned it in here specifically too. So this again, it was to some, I don't know, at least awareness of it, if not a deliberate attempt to create dumb difficulty and fucking you a little later and having to come back to this. But the robot having to take the archive, the fucking
to take the cartridge from the robot.
Yeah. You don't when he brings it back, it doesn't just go into your inventory, and that is dumb as fuck.
So dumb.
You know. Yep. I'll buy the logical rationale of needing to take it off the body, you know, just because in fact, I don't want you putting everything I find on a dead body in my inventory. I want to keep my inventory lean and not have to put junk in there. But I clearly want this fucking archive thing.
I didn't just fucking type it in there like, cool, later.
Right. So yeah, that one is a little extra stupid to me. Next hint. Question is, or topic is, no matter where I go, big ugly aliens shoot me. And first one is, it's their job. So yeah, this is a slow burn getting to, you got to hide behind shit. And they even get to the one, they realize that the central control area one is more difficult too, because the third one is, whenever you hear footsteps, duck into the nearest door behind something. They don't see anything, they'll go away. But they have a specific final one that tells you the specific hiding you have to do in that control area behind the giant mouse.
Okay.
Because, like I said, that's a particularly opaque one, I think, that even they realized. Not everyone's going to get. What do I need from the data archive room, and where the heck is it anyways? And this is, yes, a slow work through of having to give that data archive command that the scientist gives you and have the robot retrieve it for you, take it from, yada, yada, yada. I'm in the star generator room, but I don't see anything I need here. And this is, yes, it's... The first one is, look harder, it's small. And like I said, yeah, I was curious.
I was looking at this one, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, again, it doesn't seem to apply to me.
That's I wish I could remember what the fuck it does.
We shall see.
Yeah. That is a huge... I just don't see...
They just call it a widget here, too, so... take it, it'll improve your luck later is the 5th tip.
Right.
I don't know.
Which suggests... You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, it's a magnet. Yeah, I think you use it to game... Oh, yes.
Oh, I bet that's it. That makes a lot of sense.
I think you use it to game the slot machine.
Yeah, I was just going to say I don't remember this game at all, but if it's saying it's going to improve your luck and it's like a magnet, like that sounds like a gambling thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like I don't specifically remember that, but I am still somehow subconsciously connecting that. That's crazy. These games are so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Human memory is so crazy. Where's the flight preparation room? What do I do there? And this is just telling you it's in the lower level, east of the central control area, and it tells you to fucking get the gadget, and it also doesn't tell you what it is, and to put on the spacesuit, basically. Because I think you can take that spacesuit and not put it on, maybe.
Yes, you can take it, then you have to... No, wait, in mine, when I take it, I wear it. Excuse me.
Okay, yeah, I think in mine I had to put it on. Maybe, I can't recall for sure. But even if it doesn't do that, it's totally within this game's vernacular to do that. To require you to take that extra dumb step. Yep, no, it tells you to use the hand cursor on the spacesuit to put it on. So yeah, you have to. Next one is, I found the door to the escape pod bay, but when I went through, I popped like a balloon. This is what you just described. Basically, if you don't have your shit on or don't have your spacesuit on, you'll of course just fucking explode. In the escape pod, but I can't go anywhere, so this is going through the flowchart of having to put on the fucking seatbelt and pushing the right button and looking around for that button and yada yada yada. Every time I try to leave the ship, I get pulped, which is a weird fucking verb choice. Pulped against the bay doors. Why won't they open? And this is because you have to open them upstairs, of course. And it says, next one is, it says not to push the middle button. Should I push it anyways? And this is, I don't know, it's just crazy they just wasted that. They even spend the ink on this, you know?
Yeah.
It's funny to me. It's up to you. Do you just have this thing about doing what you have been told not to do? All right then, live dangerously. And then the second of 2 out of 2 clues is, but save your game first. So, you know, maybe that's the chief function of this is to learn to save early and often.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, and I'm actually, I'm absolutely saving. I'm keeping. Like I don't always do it well enough when I'm emulating, is saving multiple saves slots so you can go back because you can absolutely in these games work yourself into a corner and be fucked.
It's kind of fucked, right? Yeah,
it's critical to have different save slots working. Last one is, I got the escape pod to go, but then I just wandered around and got lost in space. And this is, you have to use the auto nav button, of course. So pretty logical here. And that is it for hint book shit. I didn't need to use any of it. Did you get stuck anywhere?
No, like I said, it was just various iterations of like, it was all pretty straightforward. Like it kind of explained it pretty well, better than I thought it would. And it was all just like, my biggest issues were like, use computer. What? Look computer. Huh?
Yeah.
Look screen. Oh, that's it. Like, okay.
Parser shit, yeah. Yeah, all that friction goes away 100% with the point and click.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So what is next? Yes, we crash landed on, was it Coron or fucking whatever the fuck the planet's called?
Corona. I think it's called Mexico.
Corona, right, yeah. And yeah, I don't know exactly what happens next, but I definitely, especially now that I said the slot machine remark, I know you get to some town, you get to a city, and I can picture the screen of the town, and you have to earn enough money, I recall, from that slot machine bullshit to be able to go buy a spaceship to go to the next place.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this is where the cave shit happens too. There's some sort of cave monster or some shit you got to deal with. So those are my memories for what's next. But
what's fun about these for me is I literally don't remember any of this. Like, I don't remember any of this game, and I can tell you pretty much everything that I remember about these kinds of games. There's a point in one of the police quests where if you approach a car that you pulled over from the wrong side, you get hit by a car.
Yeah.
In King's Quest, one of them, I think 4 or 5, you're like the slave of a magician. And
No, that's 3. That's 3.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
he leaves and then you can do things while he's gone. That's literally everything I remember about these games. Like, everything. So all of this is going to be new to me.
Yeah. Pretty fun. Yeah, like I said, I anticipate, especially King's Quest 3, like I mentioned, is one I played a bunch, and it's easily my favorite King's Quest. But I had the whole... I originally bought 6 as a big box standalone. I never beat it. It's hard as fuck. I 100% remember hitting a wall on that and never beating it. And buying it, I had the hint book for that too. So maybe I did eventually beat it because it's crazy if I couldn't beat it with the hint book. But
again,
I feel
you would
like
remember it if you did.
Yeah, I think there's. I actually think now that I think about it, I think there might have been a technical problem where it got stuck on my system, and that's why I never beat that one, even with the hint book. And I remember being extra frustrated about that.
Yeah,
as anyone would be. And then, but yeah, I also eventually bought a CD version of all of them. But I don't know how I could have got a CD to work.
I remember that.
Yeah, because it was the first 6 of them, I believe.
Yeah, that makes sense for some reason.
Yeah, I still have the CDs. I have the CD-ROMs, actually, now that I think about it. I also still have the hint book, too, come to think of it, because I saved a few random-ass books from those big boxes when I threw the boxes away like an idiot. But yeah, so I played most of the King's Quests. And then I had Police Quest 3, in a standalone big box version. So that's the one you played there, too.
Well, I don't remember any of this, so it's all new to me.
It will be a fun journey. I expect we will probably be able to beat it for the next episode, for episode 2 of this. Yeah. I have like, I want to say 40 points, maybe, or 30, high 30s of, so like, what is that, a fifth of the total points.
Yeah.
And like I said, that was like 9 minutes of game. So I expect to be able to beat it on the next one, or at least that's the thing. Like, even if it's not, maybe there's like a little more than would be ideal. Like, I feel like there's nowhere near a whole third episode possible for content. So we might as well just do the extra work and do a little bit longer.
Why don't you play a little bit and then we'll decide.
Of course.
Yeah, because I don't A, know what I'm doing, B, I'm just looking through the things, the hint book without reading, and it to me looks like there are 3 episodes, 2 more episodes, I would say, but since this was like our first episode, it ran longer than it typically would, right. I would say.
Yeah.
After this, it'll be mostly gameplay. Like, we won't be explaining our whole entire fucking backstories again, like we actually tend to do every time we do this, but...
right.
Yeah, I don't think the other ones will be as long. So maybe we could do like 2 shorter episodes.
Right. Maybe
2 hour-long episodes.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay. I mean, it might make sense too. Like I said, I think there's just not much game once we get going. Playing it, like, it might be too long to talk about, and we can kind of maybe just finish the game and just decide how to do the recording of it even after finishing the game might be the smartest way to do it, because neither one of us really know how much is left. We're kind of just guessing.
Yeah. I feel like there's 2 episodes. That might not, I'm just like, this is me just trying to like put order into things that aren't even asking for order. But, it seems like maybe each of these could have a 3 episode thing.
Okay.
But that's completely arbitrary and pulled directly out of my
it's certainly, I like the idea of, 3 acts and just 3 episodes. That makes a lot of sense. But shall see.
Yeah.
In any event, thanks for taking part in our first edit CONFIG.SYS quest and episode anyways for it. And you can subscribe to the pod on the platform provided, whatever dumbass company that serves up your pottery. Please rate and leave positive shit for the pod on whatever platform you listen to if you enjoy this nonsense. The website is nyeh.com or nyehentertainment.com/ISOH pod. Email us directly at isohpodcast@gmail.com. Follow the pod and banter with us on the Facebook page, Instagram, and subreddit, and talk shit to us about our gameplay videos on the YouTube. Links to all those will be in the show notes. We don't have a Patreon, but if you like giving money to things podcasters tell you to, and would like to do so in our direction, the Able Gamers Foundation creates custom gaming rigs for gamers with disabilities. That is cool as fuck. ablegamers.org is where you can find them. T-shirts on the website. They're dope, and proceeds on those after pod expenses go to Able Gamers. Jab, tell us what your socials are.
It's MPO Box 0031, Oberlin, Ohio 44074.
Yeah. Same thing on Instagram, funny enough. My Twitter is @JoshFolan. My Instagram is my shift key is broke, and that's where you can find me on Oculus as well. Okay, bye.
Later.